when are we Indian men going to stop seeing ourselves as victims on screen? And I find that that's a constant that's been happening through the years. I'm allowed to be an because I'm a victim. I'm allowed to sort of like, be like that. I can be a jerk and I can be an because I've been hurt. Why?
I went on a movie marathon to analyze what is described as the angry young man in Bollywood that has transitioned to the roles of alpha males on screen today. Many people today lack context about the birth of the angry young man in the 70s. Salim Javed as writers and Amitabh Bachchan as the leading man, mostly playing the role by the name of Vijay in the 70s, represented this movement. This was in sharp contrast to the leading hero Rajesh Khanna, who was a superstar with mostly romantic and soft roles prior to this movement. What I noticed when I watched Deewar and Shakti is that Amitabh Bachchan as Vijay was a character who was frustrated with corrupt systems. Many of the conflicts in the movie were represented by characters, especially antagonists, who gained a lot of monetary success and influence in society by twisting law and order in their favor, and this would become the core conflict surrounding Vijay. It's important to note that there was heavy resentment within the Indian population in the early 70s, for there were expectations of the socialist movement post the independence of this country, where there would be an alleviation of the poor, an increase in the standard of living and employment opportunities. But this era was associated with massive unemployment, a huge gap in inequalities of income, and corruption going undetected in broad daylight. This led to the sentiment of the common man having deep resentment and anger towards the establishment, be it the police force ensuring law and order, political officials who are elected to represent the people, or businessmen who benefited from corrupt individuals in positions of power so that their coffers can be filled come what may. This led to the rise of the angry young man, a figure that the audience deeply connected with. For Vijay represented the case that if those with influence cannot help the common man simply is going to take matters into their own hands and have zero regrets with that decision. So keep aside the social and historical context of why the figure of Vijay and the angry young man is relevant to the times he became mainstream. What's important to note, at least regarding the two movies I have mentioned that include Deewar and Shakti, and the main reason why I have made this video is to tell you two consistent features that exist in these movies. One is that there is deep parental trauma that Vijay undergoes, and each character has an interesting romantic relationship in which his individual strife becomes a focal point. What I noticed was that despite Amitabh Bachchan's characters experiencing a huge void within himself, either because they were assumed to believe that their father never cared for them, or he finds himself in constant conflict with them regarding how one should live their life, the character of Vijay never projected this angst in an aggressive, violent, or toxic manner to their romantic partner. The consistent feature that I find very interesting is that the deep angst within Vijay, how he is dealing with this moral dilemma of his parents never giving him the warmth of a child for the differences that they have, never translates to violence against his romantic partner. In sharp contrast, it is almost consistently soft, endearing, and almost an extension as if it was a safe space for Vijay. The larger picture that becomes very important to note is that Vijay in both Deewar and Shakti leads a dishonorable life, as he associates with gangsters who use fronts for their illegal activities. This often leads him to knowingly commit crimes, and the ultimate fate that he receives is dying in the arms of his mother and father in both films, hitting home the concept and theme of how a life led in such a manner is bound to lead to such a traumatic conclusion. A redemption arc is almost impossible when you have knowingly embarked on a path of self-destruction, where you can't even look yourself in the mirror. While this angry young man almost got lost in the decade of the 80s and 90s, as Hindi cinema had transitioned to make remakes of Telugu and Tamil movies and became aspirational romantic films set in picturesque foreign locations respectively, we sporadically saw it emerge with Sunny Deol movies. I saw Ghayal and Ghatak once again. I couldn't help but be in awe of Sunny Deol's dialogue delivery and exceptionally fierce attitude and intensity. It's absolutely crazy to me that Sunny Deol, even after 3 decades, has the same weight and gravitas in his pitch. With Ghayal and Ghatak both, you see a loving character who is fed up of individuals using their influence to cause trauma to the common man. The frustration also stems from the lack of faith in institutions who should safeguard the rights of its citizens. In both movies, Sunny Deol is seen cursing at the police force for their incompetence, for their corruption, and one deeply resonates with such a character, for it highlighted the systemic flaws of India. While Sunny Deol's roles were associated with loving family dynamics, his fight was against those who go undetected acted in their unlawful ways, of course associated with his fiery dialogue delivery and deep residing anger that the audience all hooted and cheered for. The character's imagery of strength, leadership and bravery, this is the most interesting part, was never associated with alcohol, cigarettes or women falling head over heels for him. It was represented through what he stood for. Most importantly, even the romantic relationships that include Meenakshi Seshadri in both movies is of warmth, comfort and a safe space, despite the partners knowing that their partnership may be doomed because of the path the main lead has embarked upon. What has happened, however, as the 2000s rolled around the corner, diversity of stories were in full swing, the multiplex rise led to the birth of urban stories, the 2010s led to the rise of tier 2 and tier 3 small town stories in Hindi cinema, and I think actually we were spoiled for choice through most of these 2 decades, where there was a variety of stories being told and the alpha male figure would mostly be restricted to the likes of the rare Singham coming to theatres. I am not saying that there is particularly anything wrong with the portrayal of strong men who take law and order into their own hands and in their own way are defiant and violent, but it was rare to see such portrayals. What I feel, however, has led to the abundant presence of these characters today is the rise in popularity of 4 films, namely KGF, Arjun Reddy, Pushpa and Animal. And I feel like the characters and what they have become almost seem like a misinterpreted version of what the characters who fought against the system represented back in the day. Prashant Neel has often spoken about how the inspiration of KGF is the angry young man portrayals of Amitabh Bachchan in the 70s. And while I think the first film from the franchise still stands true to this sentiment of the rise of the common man against oppressive systems and taking charge of their lives by taking drastic decisions, I feel like the other films have somewhat transitioned into becoming extensions of pretentious alpha males who are wannabes versus real men. Let me dive deep on the same by creating a contrast between 2 creators, Sandeep Reddy Wanga and Aditya Dhar. See the case of Arjun Reddy and Kabir Singh. If you technically look at their family setting, there is absolutely nothing to really complain about. The character has a loving and supporting family that is just displeased with the fact that their son has embarked on a destructive path of alcohol and cigarettes as a byproduct of a separation. The man has been raised in a loving family and his projection of anger is never addressed or where it stems from. It just exists, and as he is a celebrated and talented figure in the college, it is almost excused. The brash tone and alpha male energy seems like an Andrew Tate instruction manual for dummies. Be defiant, be aggressive, take ownership of your space and your woman, listen to what you want to, dictate the room and everyone will follow. You know, assuming that the kind of people you will meet will all be subservient and understanding. This creates a false reality in the world of the leading characters, where they assume that they will get away with everything. This creates the characters we all know around us who we term as super seniors from college, whose prime was within the confines of the college campus, and when reality struck and life had to actually be led, they couldn't help but revisit college again and again so that they can get the same glory and respect that made them feel like kings once upon a time. In Kabir Singh and Arjun Reddy, their ego leads them to lose their partner. They lose their professional license for their destructive ways and they still get retribution because their partner was so loyal and pious that she never let another man touch them. The world conspired to make everything work in your favor despite your toxic and violent ways, even with your own partner. It's not manly, it's a petulant man-child who got his way because no one ever questioned or defied them. What's crazy is, contrary to the angry young man and even roles portrayed by Sunny Deol, we don't talk about Arjun Pandit, the romantic relationship was always a soft space. Their troubles never get projected to their partners, whereas here you had a character who had a cozy and comfortable life and an unexplored anger problem and found any excuse to project it onto others, even his loved ones. In Animal, the worst argument that one can have is that the title of the movie is Animal. Hence, the character can essentially do what he pleases, and any criticism leveled at him can be defended by, hey, the title was Animal, what were you expecting? What I find interesting or rather baffling about this movie is the justification in one's head of the acts committed by Ranbir Kapoor's character. The free rein he is given to cheat for intel and still being so stuck in his ways that he tells his wife that she shouldn't dare cheat on him because he will kill anyone who does so. There is a deep toxicity, anger and violence associated with his romantic relationship, justified because the character feels like a victim in his own household. As Vikramaditya Motwani said, मेरे साथ बुरा हुआ है तो मेरा behavior भी जायज है. What I also have noticed is that while Sandeep's Arjun Reddy and Kabir Singh may have been an extension of his own experiences, the vitriol that he received from those movies almost compelled him to double down on Animal, where specific scenes I believe were integrated as rage bait to extract reactions versus them even suiting the scene in the film. To tell a partner that she has a big pelvis or instructing his wife that if he doesn't come back, dobara shadi mat karna, it just made me assume that Sandeep in some scenes wanted to just rattle the audience. When I see the poster of Spirit 2, and I know that this is early days, I see the association of manliness with blood, alcohol, and cigarettes. It reminds me of what most men and women complained about regarding the portrayal of independent, opinionated, female characters in film and series. Whenever a character is to be portrayed as having any individual thought, any proud feminist in film is portrayed with the imagery of alcohol and cigarettes. Because how can a woman be independent and still not be interested in such activities? It's the classic case of Cocktail. The subservient plain Jane is the desirable romantic relationship, and the party-going, alcohol-drinking Veronica is just meant for fun. Similarly, now I feel like if any director is simply to portray a strong man, it has to be associated with either being soaked in blood, a cigarette in hand, or having a glass of alcohol. अगर यही नहीं किया तो क्या मर्द कहलाएगा रे तू? To finally conclude, this concept of मेरे साथ बुरा हुआ है, मैं victim हूँ, इसलिए मेरा बुरा बर्ताव जायज है, is something that I did not see in the romantic relationships in Dhurandhar. The movie portrays savages in a jungle, absolute madmen, frothing in the mouth for each other's throats, and the portrayal of the romantic relationships of both Rahman Dakayat and Hamza was devoid of violence or acts of abuse. A character like Rahman Dakayat could have easily been associated with being as ruthless and aggressive with his partner as he is with warring gangs or committing acts of terrorism. But this is where the director can make a conscious choice of not doubling down on the imagery of violence against partners, for there is nothing in life that should justify it. It's not a matter of strength, but simply of cowardice. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you think about this evolution of alpha males in Bollywood. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.